Hello, welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, making it simple. I'm Dizzy Juggler, and this is our tutorial series to help you get the most out of Microsoft Flight Simulator and make your flight simming experience better. Our goal is to make sense of all of this and hopefully avoid this. Let's get right into this episode. This episode is all about autopilot. Today we're using this Cessna 172, which uses the Garmin G1000 glass cockpit. So any airplane that uses the G1000, this will apply to, and other systems will be similar, have some slight differences, but this will give you a strong understanding of how autopilot systems work in general and should make your life a little bit easier. So let's get into it. What we're going to do is focus on this bar right here, this bottom half of that bar. That's where our autopilot information will be displayed. If we press this button over here, the flight director button labeled FD, we will see some information pop up on our screen here. We've got roll and pitch. We're going to go over that in a moment. And then if you click on the HDG button, which is the heading button, actually jumped ahead. So first of all to know is this, all of this stuff here from this knob at the top to the knob at the bottom, all these buttons in between are all to do with autopilot. This is how you operate your autopilot. So let's go back to where we were here. So we've got heading mode, altitude hold mode. So you can see the display change as we press these buttons. We've got vertical speed here now displayed. And if we do something like this, we can press the FLC button, which is flight level change. So you can see how the information gets changed as we press these buttons. We're going to now reset this and get into the air. Before we get into that, I'm going to show you a few tips that I think you'll find helpful. Right now, there is no wind information, displayed here. If you want to get the wind information, you go down to this soft key here under PFD options. Press that button. You see wind, we're going to press that, and you have 3 wind options here. Option 1 displays it like that. Option 2 displays it like that, and option 3 displays it like that. I prefer option 3, but you take whatever you like. Also, there's off. If you don't want it, you can press the off and it goes away. So we'll take option 3. We'll go back. Now, over here is our barometer setting. The barometer setting is very important because it will set the altimeter. And if you have an incorrect barometer setting, it may change the actual altitude you are flying at. Real life plane crashes have happened because of the wrong barometer setting, where the altimeter was reading that they were actually higher than they really were, so they hit the ground, and we don't want that. So if air traffic control gives you a barometer setting, you can come over here to this knob where you have this triangular knob and this outer ring. The barometer is the outer ring here, so we're going to touch on that, and you can use, same as before, right stick or L2 and R2 to change that value, and you can see the altitude changing as we change that value. Right now it's in hectopascals. If we needed to change that to inches, you can do that simply by, again, going into PFD options, going over to alt units, and here you can see hectopascals is selected. If we press this button, it now changes to inches. If you're ever told by ATC to squawk a particular code, like in this case here, ATC has told us to squawk 7000, what you would do is go to transponder under, and then press code, and just press the buttons here relating to the code, and you can see here that our transponder code has now changed to 700, the one that we entered. Another tip I have for you here over on the MFD on the map, if you go to the range knob here and we highlight that, you can use L2 and R2 to zoom in and zoom out on the map. And if you give it a click, either with the X button or with the mouse button, you press that knob in, you will now see there's an arrow on the screen, and you can use your right stick to move that arrow. And if you push all the way to the edge of the map, it'll scroll the map in whatever direction you push it towards. That's how you would do that. Now, if you want to get out of this arrow mode, you press X again and just back out to release the button. So we're in the air now, and I'm going to make a left turn here while we're climbing. We'll bank like this, and I will, before I turn on the autopilot, I want you to keep an eye on the center part of the screen here and also on this black bar at the top. Ready? Here we go. Autopilot engaged. Oops. That was me, sorry. So autopilot has been engaged now, and I'm going to active pause it, and you will notice a few things. You can rewind, and you will see this magenta chevron that appeared. And also at the top here, we've got some information. The green AP means our autopilot is engaged, and we are currently in roll and pitch mode. So what's happening here is the autopilot has us in this left bank, which it will hold as long as the autopilot is active. And also our pitch angle, which is somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees, it will hold that angle as well. Now, if we turn off autopilot, and we return the airplane to something a little bit more level, you will see that this magenta chevron is still pointing to the left. So if we were to turn on autopilot again, the autopilot will take us right back to that same orientation that we were in earlier. So it's basically programmed that left turn and upward pitch. I'm going to turn off autopilot. Now, let's say if we straighten out and even go, let's go something like that, a right bank with a little bit more like level attitude, and we turn on autopilot, whoop, right back to the left turn it goes. Some light bulbs going off. This is what's going on when your autopilot is not behaving the way you want it to. Now, if we wanted to clear this, this sort of setting that the autopilot is in, first of all, we turn off autopilot and turn off flight director. That's that FD button, and go back, and that will clear what was set in the autopilot. So now if we were to do something more like this, try to get a little bit more straight and level and turn on autopilot. Now it's flying us the way we were just a moment ago when we activated autopilot. The next mode we're going to look at is heading mode. So we're going to reset everything, turn off autopilot, turn off flight director to reset everything. And we're going to turn on flight director, but we don't want roll and pitch. We're going to go to heading mode. Heading mode is controlled by this little blue thing right there called the heading bug, which is operated by the heading knob. Now, if you watch the heading bug, you can see it moves to the right, and now it's moving to the left. If we were to set this, and you can see what you're setting it to right here in this blue, these blue numbers here. So right now it's set to 024. So let's set it to like 030. and we're going to activate autopilot. And you see now the autopilot is taking us into a right turn here. It'll line us up with 030 and then start flying straight ahead and level. Now at any point we can go over to our heading knob, and if we wanted to change course we could just simply do this and make a left turn that way and just select any heading, and the autopilot will turn and put us on that heading. Now we're still in pitch mode, so the next thing we're going to go over is altitude select or altitude hold mode. We're in this slight upward pitch here. We're climbing at about 500 feet per minute. And let's say we're at 3,600 feet and we want it to stay here. We can just press this button. And now you see up here the display changes to altitude select mode. And it's going to hold us at 3,630 feet, which is where we were when we pressed the button. Now, if we want to change our altitude, we go down here to this knob here. There's an outer ring and an inner knob. The outer ring changes the value by 1,000 foot intervals, and the inner knob changes the value by 100 foot intervals. So let's say we want to climb to 4,000 feet. We just change it to 4,000, and you can see up here that is the value that we've selected. We're still holding at 3,640 feet because we have not yet told the autopilot how fast we want it to climb or by what method we want it to climb. We have two choices basically: vertical speed or flight level change mode. Vertical speed, when we press that button, you can see a VS displayed up here and also a 0 FPM, that's 0 feet per minute. And in white, Alt S, so altitude select, that's telling us that we've selected an altitude, but we have not reached it yet. So the autopilot is armed to reach some altitude yet to be reached. So at a vertical speed of 0 feet per minute, we are neither climbing nor descending. So we're just flying level. So we want to give that a value that is controlled by these two buttons here, nose up and nose down. Let's say we want to climb at 500 feet per minute. It will change that to that, and now you see 500 feet per minute. The thing you need to be aware of is in this autopilot system, it does not control speed or throttle, so we need to keep an eye on our throttle. As you climb, your speed will reduce, so you need to add some power to not risk going too slow, stalling and crashing your airplane. And now the autopilot will continue to climb at 500 feet per minute. You see Alt S now has moved from over here to over here, and it's flashing, which means we're getting close to our selected altitude. And now it's changed to Alt, meaning that we are at our selected altitude. And it will hold this altitude as long as the autopilot is engaged. Now you can see our speed is climbing up. So because we've added power, now maybe we're going to take a little bit out so we don't just keep going faster and faster. Now let's use vertical speed to descend to a lower altitude. So let's select 3,500 feet, and we're going to use vertical speed again. But instead of up, we're going to select the down button, and you can see there was a down arrow, meaning that we're descending. And earlier, if you rewind, you will see that there's an up arrow indicating that we're climbing. And our speed is getting pretty high here, so we're going to lower our throttle a little bit. And then you see the speed coming back down. And when we level out, we will need to add that power back again. Once again, you can see Alt S here indicating that we've selected an altitude. we are descending at 500 feet per minute. Here it shows you that we've selected 500 feet per minute to descend, and if you rewind, you will see that this said plus 500 earlier when we were climbing to 4,000. And now this has flashed to Alt S, so we're getting close to our selected altitude. You see Alt over here, and Alt has now moved over here, so we are at our selected altitude, and that's where the autopilot will hold. Our speed is dropping, so we're going to want to add some power back. And there you go. That's a vertical speed. Next, we're going to look at changing altitude using flight level change. Right on. Okay, so we're going to do the same as before. We're going to climb to 4,000 feet using flight level change. So now you can see FLC is displayed here with a speed of 105 knots. And also, like before, Alt S in white, meaning that we've selected an altitude but have not yet reached it. And also over here, you'll see in blue that 105 knots is displayed there. Now, we can change that speed using these two buttons here, just like we did on vertical speed, but now they control, instead of a rate of feet per minute, they control an actual speed that the airplane is flying at. So we can specifically tell the airplane how fast to fly. So right now we're set at 105 knots, which is what we were flying at, the speed that we were flying at when we've selected the new altitude. It's like before with vertical speed of 0. We're not climbing, we're not descending, because we're going the same speed we were going before. So now what we're going to do is press this button here, which will lower our speed. And by lowering the speed, it allows the autopilot to pitch the airplane up. And we're going to lower it a little bit more. And we're going to go a little bit more, say like 85 knots. So same as before, we're getting close to our selected altitude. 4,000 was just flashing here, and in a moment we should see some stuff happen up here. You see we're climbing at about 500 feet per minute, and there's altitude select flashing. Altitude is in white over here, and now altitude hold is here. Now the airplane will level off, and our speed will come back up to about what it was before. So now we're at 4,000 feet, and we're going to use flight level change to descend. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to 3,500 feet, and we're going to select flight level change. Same as before, it just selected the speed we're currently flying at, so there will be no change in altitude. This time we're going to press the nose up button to increase our speed. So we're going to increase our speed, not too much, something like that, maybe 107. No, looks like we need a little bit more than that. Oh boy, pressed the wrong button. That is a problem in the sim where you're pointing at one button and a different button highlights. So like this. So the other thing you can do, if it's not quite moving as quick as you want, you could reduce your throttle a little bit. And now we're descending at about 500 feet per minute. Coming up on 3,500 feet. And Alt S is flashing. We're getting close to our selected altitude. Alt is flashing. We're at our selected altitude and our speed is dropping. I took some throttle out, so I'm going to add some back in. And that's flight level change. So mess around with your power settings and the speed settings there to, to adjust the rate that you're climbing or descending. And that's flight level change. Now I'm going to show you how to use autopilot if you have a flight plan. So we're going to create a quick little flight here. We're going to go from this airport and we're going to take off at runway 28. Actually, we're going to do not runway 28, runway 10, and we're going to fly to this guy here. And something like that. We're going to bring up the EFB. I'm going to make this larger for visibility. Like this. Okay. Going to our flight plan. So you can click on this button here when there's an airport listed here, if you click on the little I, it brings the airport information, that specific airport's information down here. You can click on the I for more details of this particular airport. There is the airport identifier, the position and the elevation of the airport in general, and its size. So we're dealing with a small airport on purpose here because I want to show you something that is a game changer, especially in career mode, that basically lets you use autopilot to land as if you had an ILS approach at absolutely any airport. Stick around, it's awesome. Okay, we can see the weather at the airport. Currently looking like 8 knots from 330. And it's telling us a recommended runway is 28, but we're actually going to use 2N, 10, because I want to show you something. Right, so we're going to, right now there is our procedure to depart is this right here, is the left overhead, which is fine. We're just going to take off in this direction and make a left turn and head that way. That's all fine. Now we're going to go to the arriving airport and click on this, and now we get the information. You can see here that it changed from MMND to MMNS. So now we're looking at the arrival airport, and we have winds of 8 knots from 330, supposedly. It's not super reliable, but let's say that that's true. From 330, our options are 09 or 27. 27 is the better one. Actually, I can go here and show you there are no charts here. So we go back here, and it's telling us the recommended is 27. Actually, I'm going to do a bad thing here and select runway 9, even though it's with the wind. And we're going to change our approach. Here's something, if you're playing a lot of career mode, I recommend going in here to your arrival airport and change it to VFR, especially if you're flying VFR, the early stages of the game. Change it to straight auto approach. What this will do is give you a long final, so you have more time to align yourself and give yourself a good shot at a proper approach. Otherwise, you end up with a really short final, and it gets pretty difficult, especially if you're just learning. There's just not enough time to set up for a decent approach. We'll click change. So now we have our straight in long final. And I could try to find a route to give us some waypoints, but I've done that before and there are no waypoints in between. So it'll just be a straight flight. And we're going to send this. Actually, before we do that, one more thing. We do not want to fly at 140. We're going to fly at 4,000 feet. And go here, and it's a VFR flight. So I think we have everything we need to get going. We're going to send this to ATC and the avionics and do that. And now we have a flight hopefully loaded. And away we go. All right, here we are on runway 10, getting ready to depart. Now, I'm going to show you something here that's not really proper, but if you wanted to do it, because this is a video game after all, and you can play it how you want to play it, I'm going to show you how you can use autopilot to take off. And if you're struggling, maybe in the beginning, you want a little bit more help, this is great to start off with. So what we're going to do is, once again, turn on our flight director. We are going to press heading, heading hold, altitude hold, and we are going to select, let's say our cruise altitude will be, let's put it at 4,000 feet. And we want to climb at a rate, let's say, let's do flight level change of 74 knots, which is optimal for the Cessna 172. Pressing this button a whole bunch of times. And we're going to align our heading bug straight down the runway. So we're going to give that a press. And now we have the heading bug leading us straight down the runway. And we can verify that by this magenta chevron, which is pointing straight ahead. And I think we have our flaps. We should be good to go. Now, what I'm going to do is bring back the yoke, and you will see that I am not going to put any elevator or aileron inputs. I'm only going to use rudder to keep us more or less down the center of the runway. And the autopilot, at a certain point around between 30 and 40 knots, I'm going to activate or engage autopilot, and the autopilot will take us up into the sky if everything works correctly. So we need to take the parking brake off, full power, and away we go. Oh, now we take the parking brake off. 20 knots, 30 knots. I'm going to put autopilot on. I'm just using rudder. And the autopilot has taken us off the ground. Hopefully not fly us into those trees. Pretty close. Now this is a very small runway. It's a tight runway. On a bigger airport that you would have tons of room, it wouldn't be so scary. But this just proves that you can do it on a very small runway, very tight airport. So now I'm going to remove yokes just to give us better visibility. We are climbing at 74 knots, which is what we told the autopilot to do. And we are going to climb until we hit 4,000 feet on this current heading. Now we know from our flight plan, let's go like this. So we wanted to make a left turn. Our flight plan was for a left turn leaving the airport. So we are going to use the heading knob here and give us turn to the left. And you can see on the map there that we are turning. We're still climbing. We're still maintaining more or less 74 knots. Just want to make sure our RPMs are good. And now we're going to make another left turn. We're going to align that heading bug in that direction there. So after this, when this turn is completed, we will be heading towards our destination. Now, if you noticed here on the screen, these magenta boxes, that is our GPS marker, basically what's in the flight plan. That's where we're supposed to be flying. Now you can see this arrow, this magenta arrow here. It's missing the centerpiece, which is over here. This is pointing in this direction, which is telling us our GPS heading should be this way, or our GPS destination is in that direction. But this center chunk of the line being off to the left here means the path that we should be on is off to the left right now. So we are currently only using heading mode, which, as you've seen before, requires us to tell the autopilot what heading to use. We don't necessarily want to do that all the time. If we've uploaded an elaborate flight plan, we want the autopilot to navigate all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to activate this right here, navigation mode. Navigation mode will tell the autopilot to use whatever flight plan has been loaded into the avionics. Right now, if you go to this FPL button, which is for flight plan, you will see this is our flight plan. It's a very simple one. It's just runway to runway. You can click that again to put it away. So we want to now get our airplane following the GPS path here. So to do that, we're going to do two things. Actually, to make this more dramatic, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get us further away from that path. And now I am going to press the nav button, and you can see up here GPS is displayed in white, meaning it's armed. And now we've reached our selected altitude, so I'm going to have to take that away. I'm going to have to reduce throttle a little bit. Oh, I should also put my flaps up because I didn't do that. I should have done that a long time ago. So we're just going to dial back our throttle. Something like that. Bring back this. So, like I said, we've activated nav mode, so GPS is displayed. And like I said earlier, this center chunk of the magenta line over here means that's the direction we have to go to get back on our path. So what I'm going to do is tell the autopilot to send us in that direction. And you don't have to do it like at a perpendicular angle. You can do it sort of on a, in roughly the direction we're going to end up going anyway. So we'll like send it up so we meet that line on an angle. And now what's going to happen is the autopilot is going to fly us towards the GPS path that we're supposed to be on. And once we get close, this GPS will become active, and the autopilot will align us with our GPS path and will follow whatever's in the flight plan. In a moment, you will start seeing this line here starting to slide towards the airplane in the HSI here. Now you can see it's starting to come. And now GPS is flashing, indicating that it's captured the GPS profile. The autopilot is turning us on the direction of the GPS path. Now, a good habit to get into, you see the heading bug is over here, which was the heading we were using before. A good habit to get into is whenever you make a turn while you're using autopilot, or if you're not using autopilot, is to always realign that heading bug, which we're going to do like that, to the direction you're traveling in or the heading you're traveling on. And in case something goes wrong and you ever need to go back to that heading. If our autopilot messed up or something went wrong, at least we would know that was our last heading, which may become really important if something really bad happens. Now we're going to get rid of that. So we're now cruising towards our destination. And if we go up, I can't go any closer, but here you can see we've left from runway 10. We are heading towards runway 9. And the distance remaining will be displayed here. We're going to go do something over on this screen right here. We're going to press this FPL, the flight plan button. We're going to bring it up. Now, to work within this box here, what we're going to do is click this button once, click it again so that you see this flashing here. And now we use the outer ring. We can scroll up and down through the items listed here. We could add waypoints. We could change our destination. That's how basically you would navigate through here. Now what we're going to do is click this procedures button, and right now highlighted here is select approach. We're going to hit enter to select approach, because what we're going to do now is tell the autopilot to get us on an approach to our destination. So the autopilot is going to take us down almost completely right to the ground. If we let it, it'll fly us right into the runway. But we're going to take over at the very last possible moment. So we're going to select a visual approach to runway 9. We're going to hit enter. And we want to go to the outer ring here, click on that. And we're going to switch this to straight transition, and we're going to hit enter. And we're not going to worry about minimums right now. And so now we see some information here has been populated, and we'll get back to this a little bit later. For now, we're going to scroll down to load and hit enter. It gives us a warning saying this is a VFR approach. We are responsible for making sure there are no obstacles. And we'll say, sure, no problem. We'll accept that. And now the approach has been loaded into the flight plan. So you can see here, this magenta arrow here is the path we're currently on, or the leg that we are currently on. We're heading towards MMNS. And some information has been entered down here. What we're interested in right now is this final and FAF, which is final approach fix, which has an altitude here of 1,679 feet. So in order for the autopilot to bring us from our current higher altitude down onto our approach, we need to set the altitude. We need to select an altitude that is at least as low as this or lower. And I like to go just a bit lower. So we'll go over to here. And that altitude was 1,679 feet. So we will go, we'll set to 1,600 feet. Like that. And the next thing we're going to do is press the VNAV, or the vertical navigation button, and when you do that, you will see VPATH. If you do not select a lower altitude, the autopilot will not know to descend. So that's a very important thing you must do for ILS approaches and VNAV approaches. You need to set an altitude to tell the autopilot to descend, otherwise it won't do it. So now if we go over here, you will see we have here TOD and a time. That's top of descent in 13 minutes. If we put this, put that away and click on this and do out. Right here, it's kind of hard to see because it's there's two things there in the same spot, but it actually says TOD. That is our top of descent. So the system has calculated at what point we should start descending, and it will do that on its own. So if you bring the flight plan back up, again, here you can see in 12 minutes and it's counting down. In 12 minutes and 20 seconds, the autopilot will put us into a descent towards the runway. It's important to know that we need to activate VNAV. So by pressing this vertical nav button like we just did, we need to do that before we reach top of descent. We don't have to do it this early. As long as you do it before top of descent, everything should be fine. We're just going to fast forward until we get closer to top of descent. While we are waiting to reach top of descent, something you should always do, and I'm going to enlarge this so we see it better, is always go to your destination. We're going to be landing at runway 9 here, and check the elevation. So we have an elevation, the runway elevation of 850 feet. So don't forget to take that into consideration when you're selecting altitudes and when you're on your final approach. While we have some time here before top of descent, I'm going to talk about FAF, or final approach fix. So what's going to happen here is when we're on our approach, at a certain point, we are going to need to hit the approach mode button, or activate approach mode. We need to do that before we reach our FAF, or final approach fix. So if we zoom out on the map here, we can see that according to the procedure here, this leg of final, or the waypoint called final, is our FAF. So as long as we activate approach before we reach this waypoint called final, then everything should work as far as our approach into the runway. Okay, so we've got about 2.5 minutes to top descent, so we're going to start recording here. I just don't want to miss anything. So you can see here we're on this leg from runway 10 to Mike November Sierra, and we have 1.2 miles to go. And if I flight plan, zoom in, this is the leg we're on, and when we reach this point, the autopilot should give us a gentle turn to the right, and watch what happens here. And with the autopilot, and like I said before, now that we've made a turn, realign our heading bug. And now we are on this leg from Mike November Sierra to straight. And we have just under 5 miles to go. Zoom this out. There is our waypoint of straight. And remember, the one we wanted to keep track of is our waypoint of final, which is here. So after we make this loop, we're going to come back, and before we reach this point here, we need to activate approach mode. So we've got about 45 seconds to top of descent, which is right there. Here in magenta, 1,679, that is in altitude limit. So even though we've set our altitude to 1,600, the system knows that we cannot go below 1,679 feet, so it should hold us at 1,769 until we reach a point where we can continue to go lower. Now, a very important thing has happened. This has switched to Alt V, which means we are now on a vertical profile. So we've got this extra little bar here, and you can see there's this V in the center here. That means we've locked on, as long as this is in the center of the bar, we've locked onto our vertical profile, and you can see we are descending So lo and behold, so far, everything is working well. I always get really excited when it actually works because I've tried it many, many times. And like I said before, sometimes bugs just get in the way and it doesn't work. But when it does, it's actually a lot of fun. I'm sorry. So here we go. We are now descending and we are heading towards straight. We need to remember to press the approach button before we get to final. So we'll wait till we, make most of this turn, and then we'll press the approach button. The other thing we need to be doing here, now we're in a descent, you can see our speed has gone up. So we'll want to regulate our speed as we're coming in. We're also setting up for a landing, so we need to get an appropriate landing speed. And now we are making that turn. We've passed the straight waypoint and we're making the turn towards final. And we need to get our speed down because we're gonna have to put our flaps down at a certain point. So we gotta get our speed down into the flap zone. And a lot of things going on right now, so we cannot forget to press the approach. And I'm going to do that now. And now you see GP is here, which means glide path. And there's a magenta diamond here that is solid in color, and it's in the center, which means we have captured that profile. So the aircraft will take us in, or the autopilot rather will take us in on that glide path, that angle towards the runway. And now we're down below 80 knots, so we will put flaps down the first position. We're gonna a bit slow here. We'll get our speed, something. And we can look up and see what's happening out there. Normally what you would be doing is looking for the runway. I'm just focusing on here for now. Going a bit too fast, we'll take some power out. By the time we straighten out onto final, we want to be down to maybe around 70 knots and eventually working our way down to about 65 knots before we reach the runway. By the time we reach the runway, or actually before we reach the runway. So we'll take some more power out. And our heading bug will reset to there. With the Cessna 172, you can probably do away with the first position of flaps. You don't need a whole lot of flaps to land. Remember to keep an eye on your speed. Basically right now we're just monitoring everything. Keep an eye on speed to make sure we regulate a good approach speed, verifying that we're still on our glide path and everything is working the way we're supposed to. Every once in a while I'm glancing over here to see that we're on our correct path. And we're going to reset that heading bug again. That's in case we have to do a go around. And we have that set. Remember, our runway elevation was 850 feet, so we are less than 1,000 feet above the runway. We are on final. If you had to call out to, air traffic, whatever, we're also going to put our taxi lights on because by this point, let's assume we've gotten clearance to land. And we're at 65 knots here. And there is the runway. We would normally be looking out the window, but I want to show you what's happening here. Okay, we're looking pretty good. That's our
500.
wind. We are going downwind, which is not ideal. So this is going to be a bit of a problem. It's not going to be a great landing. Well, it's just going to be a little bit more challenging than if we were coming from the other direction. But I did it for a reason to show you the turn with the approach mode and the VNAV and all that. So we wouldn't have done this normally. We would have come downwind, or sorry, into the wind on the landing. We're going a bit too fast here. And pretty soon I'm going to take control. If it doesn't fly us straight into that tree. Cut some power, power. And I have control.
Stall. Stall. Stall.
A little bit rough, but we did it. So that basically shows you how you can use autopilot, basically take full advantage of autopilot, use autopilot for an approach at a runway that doesn't have ILS or VNAV capabilities. I really hope this video was helpful. I hope you at least learned one or two things. I really hope you learned a lot of things. So glad you watched this entire video. Please, if it was helpful, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.